Hello, hello, and welcome back. You are here yet again for another chatty catch-up on my reading week, and it is dark again today, so we're getting a little drizzly rain. I'm very happy. The temperature has come down a little bit. It's like 80-ish something. So it's giving me very Ireland vibes right now, or very hot for Ireland, but it's kind of drizzly and misty, overcast, and it's great. I'm loving it. So I have a stack here because we did have a 3-day weekend in the US for the holiday, and that was continuing on from my week off. So I had lots of reading time, and yeah, I have a very big pile this week. So let's jump right into it. So first, my audiobook. This was from my TBR, and that is Donut Fall in Love by Jackie Lau. I really love this. This is kind of the standard style in how it's told. It's alternating perspectives between both people in the couple, and we're following Lindsay and Ryan. Ryan is a famous person. He's a celebrity, and he's dealing with a lot of stereotypes about being an Asian actor, and where he's pigeonholed into certain roles, and he's always trying to kind of subvert that. So he is preparing to be on a baking show, and this baking show is kind of a nailed it type show where everyone's expected to do poorly, but he decides he wants to prepare and get some training in baking. And he happens into this bakery just prior to that and ends up remembering that he had noticed that they offered classes. So he decides to set up some one-on-one baking classes at this cute little bakery. And of course, Lindsay is the baker. So they initially don't hit it off, that is for sure. So this isn't quite enemies to lovers, but they start on the wrong foot and have to get to know each other. And that is kind of my favorite setup. I do like enemies to lovers because it always features that, but this features that at a lighter level. I felt this was so good because it managed that real rom-com-y feel, where it's just super light, fun, and entertaining, while also balancing some really heavy themes. So both of them are dealing with having somewhat recently, or I guess not somewhat recently, but they're both dealing with the grief of having lost a parent and that void in their current life, what that means for them, one more recently than the other. And so they have that shared and they're able to talk about it. They are dealing with the fact that they have very different immigrant experiences in their family's past, and the ways that their parents' relationship to their home culture is very significantly different. We also have kind of, as I said, with this actor element, as well as with parental relationships and strained parental relationships, they have this very sort of stereotyped situation with like high expectations from their parents, that sort of thing. So I thought it covered those topics in their actual relationships really, really well. I think as well, the side characters were really nuanced. So one of them is bi and out publicly about that and really trying to kind of subvert homophobia. And then another character is dealing with things like postpartum depression and having a new baby. And so those were dealt with really well and deftly, I think. Those are not things I've had to really deal with at the scale that these are covering. But I thought they were really well handled. So I just really enjoyed this, and coincidentally, like perfect timing between when I decided to put this on my TBR and when I actually checked it out for my library, they added the second book for like a pre-order hold. So I definitely will be getting the second book when it comes out. I think it's coming out in October. So really great. I enjoyed it. I'm so glad Shannon from That's Oppo pushed me to reach out for Jackie Lau's books. Then, because our country in the US was celebrating our freedom, and we're not so free right now, I felt the need for some comfort reading, so I spent the 4th of July reading the Tea Dragon Society. So that is the first book, The Tea Dragon Society, and this is the very first one that came out before it turned into a series. It was adapted from a webcomic, so I think you can still read this online. And then the other two books that have come out since are The Tea Dragon Festival, and the latest is The Tea Dragon Tapestry. So as you can tell, the art is just gorgeous. I'm going to put these up here. And in this first book, I think this is much more simplistic than the other two. This one features our character here, who is Greta, and she is a blacksmith's child. Her mother is the blacksmith, and Minette is someone she meets in the process of the story, and we've got our tiny tea dragon here. So she is questioning whether she wants to be a blacksmith when she grows up, like that's the natural path, but she doesn't know that she loves it. And one day she finds a tea dragon who is lost and discovers where to take it back to, and that's this tea shop, and that is where the Tea Dragon Society is located. So it turns into this very quiet, beautiful story about taking time to learn kind of information and knowledge that's passed down because people haven't really kept up the knowledge of how to care for these tea dragons, and that helps her see the value in doing that and why she might want to learn the specialized knowledge that her mother has about blacksmithing as well. And in the process of this, there's this whole community and found family element where she connects with this Tea Dragon Society, and they become a very tight-knit group around these tea dragons. So this one is very simplistic, as I said. It is built around seasons, so each section of this is split up into like a vignette about what happens during the season. So yeah, it's really simple. Tea Dragon Festival is a jump back in time. So the tea shop owners, who are Hezekiel and Eric, are a couple, and they were previously adventurers until Eric was disabled, and so he's in a wheelchair. So this one was very interesting because we have Eric's sister, Rin, is the main character, and this is back in time when they were still adventurers. So Rin, being the main character, she is kind of a forager for her village in this very rural mountain area. And she comes across this actual dragon who was slumbering for decades and was supposed to kind of be caring for and overseeing the village. And he's got this shrine. The shrine is really run down, and so he's woken up by her and kind of feels like he missed out on something, but they can make it up, and he's going to be there for this big tea dragon festival. So we're seeing back in time when the tea dragons were still really upkept and were still lauded, as well as kind of having a more mythical element. So this one I loved because there is the addition of a character who actually does sign, and I don't know if we'll be able to see this, but it shows what it looks like when they are signing and what it looks like when they're both signing and speaking. And so I thought that was an innovative element, and the character is just a side character who's a member of the village. I wish it had been incorporated even more, but I do like that it was just natural, and it wasn't there to be a focus of the story. It was just there because this person was a member of their village, and so the village had adapted and accommodated their needs. So I really, really liked that. Then the last one was Tea Dragon Tapestry, and this was by far my favorite of all three. This is the newest, and this brings it all together, and it's so much more depthy. It's got a lot more to the story. So this brings the previous two stories together. It takes place after the first book. So the two characters, Minette and Greta, are a little bit older. They're getting ready to go and start their lives. They are learning to kind of respect the whole self that they've become as a result of all of their experiences. And we're seeing the past stories. Each of those characters comes into play here. So it really binds it all together, and there are multiple plot lines in here. So like I said, this had a lot more layers to the story than the previous two that were maybe geared at a much younger audience. I think this one aged it up a little bit, and I think all of these would be great for all age readers. As you can tell, I enjoyed all of these. I think the previous books were much more geared toward children, and this one would be very enjoyable at all ages. So yeah, I absolutely love this series. It was the perfect comfort reading for me when I really needed to get my mind off things. So I'm just so pleased to have read it. I actually did reread books 1 and 2, and the third was my first time reading it. So I was really surprised that it completely blew away with the previous two. Then, one I can't really talk about my thoughts on is More Than I Love My Life by David Grossman and translated by Jessica Cohen. And this one is from an Israeli author who has previously won the Booker International for, I think, A Horse Walks Into a Bar. And this one really gave me a lot of new information, I would say. I'm not at all familiar with the history of the Balkans, and that's kind of the focus here. So the story, plot-wise, is starting from Israel, this 3-generation story all kind of coming together and going to a prison island. So we have the grandmother, Vera, who was imprisoned in this island camp in Goli Otak. And I knew nothing about that. That was kind of my first time hearing of it. And then the story is following her daughter, Nina, who had kind of some emotional fallout from her mother being in this prison camp and leaving her behind. And then the granddaughter, Gilly. So the three of them, as well as Gilly's father, Rafi, are all going to Goli Otak together to film a documentary, basically, of Vera talking about her experience there. And so they're uncovering their family history, really, through this. So as I said, I really didn't know anything about kind of the political conflicts that were leading to her being pulled into this prison camp situation and her life there. And then after getting freed and going to Israel, all of that was all new to me. So I can't really say anything about what I thought or how I feel about this. You will get a standalone review of this once the BookTube prize is either wrapped up or this is eliminated. So the current round ends at the end of July. So that's More Than I Love My Life. So those are what I finished this week. In terms of what I'm in progress on, I've got a lot. So I think most progress is on Not to Fade Away by Rebecca Alexander, and this is a nonfiction all about this woman who is losing both her sight and hearing. So it has been very, very compelling to read. Then I have The Seep. So you may recall, I grabbed this for my Try a Chapter tiny books a couple of weeks ago, and I just hung on to it because I wanted to read it. So I'm going to try to read this weekend. And then started The Light from Uncommon Stars by Rika Aoki. It's another one of my TBR books. This is a sci-fi. So those are in progress as well as on audio now. I have started Baggage by Alan Cumming, and I listened to his previous memoir. He's just a fantastic memoirist, so I'm sure Baggage is going to be equally as good. So that's all my book stuff. For life stuff, today has already been hectic and traumatic, or for me and Gumbo. So I had to get up extra early to give Gumbo some medication to calm her down in order to go to the vet for her yearly appointment. I have delayed and delayed. We're a couple months behind on getting her there. But I think it went well. She did get the medication. It went much, much better than last year. Last year, I was significantly late to the appointment because I couldn't catch her to get her into the car because Gumbo, my cat, is semi-feral. She does not let me pick her up. We have a good relationship. She likes to be petted as long as she's, in control. It's on her terms, and she's prepared to dart away if I make the wrong move. But she doesn't let me pick her up. She doesn't like to be touched with two hands, so that's a very rare thing. So this was very weird to be there, and I think she was at the point where she was just very scared and frozen, pretty much. So she let them pick her up. No problem. Well, not no problem. I will say she was like grabbing onto anything she could, but she wasn't doing the normal like complete fighting all out that she does with me at home. So I think that's a sign she is more comfortable here than she was there. But it was very, very bizarre to see somebody just be able to grab her and pick her up, not have to. She wasn't scruffed or anything. So I think she is probably in the basement in a closet right now, hiding out. She got through it. I think she will probably forgive me shortly. However, as a result, we did kind of decide, and I was ready to actually ask about it beforehand, getting her on an anxiety medication to try that, because she is not really responsive at this point to the usual things you would do to socialize a semi-feral cat. So I've had her 2 years now, and she has not made the progress I would like to see, or been cooperative with the usual methods. So the next thing to do is to kind of try an anxiety medication. So we are going to do that and put her on anxiety meds for a little while and see if she does come out of her shell a little bit more with that additional help to calm down. So I'm hoping that will be a real good progress. I think she did well today with the med that they gave me to put her on. So it's basically the same thing, just maybe a higher dose. So I think that was my day. Because of that, that was my whole morning. It's already noon and I have not done any reading except for my audiobook. As I said, I'm listening to Baggage, and so my whole day is discombobulated now. So I do plan to read the rest of this afternoon because it is, as I said, rainy. I'm not going to be outside doing anything or getting out and about. I did have to, oh my gosh, run up to the other vet for my foster cat. I had talked a couple weeks ago about the fact we were having problems with this medication I have to pick up every week because it's a controlled substance. So I went up to pick up his med and they again didn't have it ready. So I don't know if there is, like, we thought we had sorted this out after the last time 10 days ago, and apparently not. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's the shelter because he's a foster cat and they're the ones who are supposed to call in the medication, or if it's the vet is not just not filling it. It should have been filled two days ago and ready for me to pick up this morning. And I stopped by there after bringing Gumbo back here to go hide for a while after her appointment. Ran up there only to have the meds not ready. So I'm back without anything. So it was a frustrating, stressful morning to say the least, all about the cats. So in the life stuff, I think it was a very decent week. I mentioned we had the 4th of July. It was full of explosions, but seemed very low key comparatively to other years. Normally there's stuff going off the whole week, and there very much was not. I think at least in part because it was so hot. They were really enforcing not firing off any fireworks in the area. But usually people get away with it anyway or continue doing it. So the night of, people were definitely lighting stuff off, but for the most part it was pretty low key. So I think that's it for my week. For my recommendations, I really just have, I think, one. So my one recommendation is that you check out the Final Girl Readathon being hosted by David and Craig at Shelf Possessed. It sounds really fun. They've gone out of their way to make it accessible even if you don't read a book. It's a week long, I believe last week of this month, but I'll link the details down below. And all of the prompts are not just books, but watching horror movies, doing certain activities. So it sounds like it's going to be a really great time. So definitely check out that readathon if you have not heard about it, because they put a lot of effort into it and looks really good. So I think that is it for my week. I hope you are having a calmer week than I am. Thank you so much for watching.
Are there loud noises out there? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Rue, on the other hand, is prepared to go out the door. He wants to go outside and fight all of the booms because he's a jerk. You are the antagonist, aren't you? You would fight every boom. So I came outside thinking my plant died overnight. Something ate a whole bunch of it. I'm guessing the deer came by. You're gonna get on your wheel? You gonna get it? Get on the wheel. You can do it. Go, go. You gonna try to get to the top? I can see your eyeballs are doing that. You're such a weirdo. Got a very interesting bug. These are my holy grail hibiscus buds. It looks like it's gonna bloom really well in a couple weeks. I am trying to work. I don't see how I'm supposed to focus with this going on. It's literally 100 degrees. I don't think you guys needed to cuddle. Ripley, did he steal your spot? She doesn't care. This is what happens when you step outside the door in summertime when it rains. Zero visibility. We're post appointment with Gumbo. Rue is very cautiously observing the carrier. He does not trust it at all. Is that the carrier the enemy?